I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit different, is that we're going to have an opening up video. And some of you, if you've been to our sessions over the last 2 years, in fact, the Dynamic 3 here, is that we've concentrated with Supply Chain Orchestrator, and now this year we have Data Fabric Studio with Supply Chain Module, is that we concentrated more on CPG, wholesale distribution, retail, and manufacturing. But over the past year, we've had such a huge demand from each of the regions, from our customers and from Gartner and IDC, saying, why don't you take what you do with supply chain and do supply chain optimization in a healthcare setting? So that's what our showcase is going to be here, is that we're going to show what we do with our technology in a healthcare setting. And I want to show you this video just to give you an idea at a higher level of where we can play from that perspective.
When a medical emergency occurs, will you be ready? Just one missing item is enough to cancel a critical surgery, delaying care and risking complications. 20,000 surgeries a year means coordinating more than 5 million surgical components that need to come together at the right time and place. Even a 10% procedure cancellation rate can result in over $40 million in lost revenue. Supply chain visibility is crucial for improved patient care and purchasing decisions. InterSystems Supply Chain Orchestrator provides an AI-enabled supply chain decision intelligence platform to predict disruptions before they occur and optimally handle them when they do. It unifies supply chain and healthcare data conveniently in a single source. Ensure availability of the right supplies for patient procedures, predict late shipments, and manage product recalls with the AI-powered Supply Chain Copilot. This could save you millions of dollars per year. And investigate procedures at risk to identify supply gaps before they cause disruptions, ensuring improved patient care. This is just the beginning of what's possible when you take control of your supply chain. With InterSystems, you're already ready to improve patient care with an optimized end-to-end healthcare supply chain.
What we're going to do is that, so myself, Ming, and Emily, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on how we're solving supply chain challenges with data-driven intelligence, and we're going to keep it more healthcare specific. So what we want to do is I'm going to set up yet another use case a little bit more specific around patient care, and then we're going to go into talking about Supply Chain Orchestrator at a glance. We're not going to go super deep dive into it. We can always do that outside of this meeting to go deeper. We're also going to talk about the Supply Chain Data Gateway at a glance, and then Ming and Emily are going to go into a demo showing the technology in real time of how we're being able to improve patient care for this particular use case that I'm going to give you, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. So let's set up the use case. So there's a missed surgery. So at 6:45 a.m. at Grace Center Medical, the surgical team is preparing for a complex heart procedure scheduled at 8 a.m. The patient, Mr. Hernandez, has been waiting for his operation for months. Everything appears to be on track until the lead nurse reviews the surgical tray and realizes a critical component of the heart valve kit is missing. And there's two reasons of what happened. So the first reason is the supply chain team had no visibility into the exact needs of today's surgical schedule because of their planning and inventory systems were not connected to the hospital surgical scheduling system. The second issue that happened is that the inventory management system shows that the particular item that was missing was indeed in stock, but it was reallocated to another location previously, but the manual update was not made to be able to show that the product is now at a different location. And unfortunately, the systems do not talk to each other. So the result of the missed surgery is obviously there was patient dissatisfaction. Mr. Hernandez was frustrated and anxious. The surgical team is stressed out. The hospital must now rebook operating room time, which could delay other patients. The cost of care just went up, and there's loss of billing revenue. So the missed surgery. So why did it happen? And for this particular use case, it goes beyond just this example I gave you. This is something that is a systemic issue that we're seeing around the world for healthcare organizations, is that there are an issue from silos. So data silos, application silos, and functional silos. If I go back to data silos, there's the critical supply, clinical, and patient data live in separate systems. Application silos, there's no interoperability between all the different applications and the particular systems that they're using. Could be Workday, could be Oracle, could be SAP. And then there's functional silos, where the supply chain teams are measured differently while the clinicians care about service quality and outcomes, and the workflows are not connected. So there's a big mismatch between functions. So these three silos, obviously, in a situation like we saw in that beginning video, if you're having 20,000 surgeries and the X% is not happening, it's a big number. So what I'd like to do is, so what is our technology to address that use case that I just mentioned? So InterSystems, we have two different supply chain products, and they're all about improving decision intelligence. They're composable solutions. They're not commercial, off the shelf. Oftentimes we hear that, like, well, you're an application, you're a Workday, you're a 09, you're a Kinaxis. We're not that. We're a composable solution that complements existing systems. And I think that's the really key aspect, is because in any hospital situation, you're going to have many, many different systems. So we complement those systems. I'm going to go through relatively briefly on the two products that we have. Supply Chain Orchestrator, as you know, we launched that 2 years ago. And InterSystems Data Fabric Studio with Supply Chain Module, which we call Data Gateway, was launched this past March. So InterSystems Supply Chain Orchestrator, and the reason why we built it out the way you're going to see we're building it out is because many of you here are already using InterSystems Iris. And so there's going to be a slide at the very end that we want to show you how easy it is to transition from InterSystems Iris to Supply Chain Orchestrator. But as you know, and I'll just be a little bit repetitive for those that are on Iris, so there's 4 key embedded technologies that we're using. So on the upper left is we're talking about consistent unified data. So that's where we're bringing in all the disparate data from any source, structured, unstructured, is coming into the data platform. We then, on the lower left, are harmonizing that data, and we're harmonizing it at rest, meaning especially in hospitals and so many of the different sectors that we're in, the volume of data can be quite excessive. We're not a data mart, we're not a data lake, we are only using the data when it's needed, so on demand and at rest, which is really key from the standpoint of becomes a very operationally low cost solution, but it helps guarantee that we're going to always be using the most accurate, trusted, real-time data. On the upper right, intelligent processes, we've heard so much from the different sessions we've heard in the keynotes this morning. Interoperability is so important. So there's interoperability of business processes, but there's interoperability of all the different systems and applications. And then the lower right is all about actionable insights, being able to use our own AI and our own ML. And then recently, as we did last year, as we brought in the generative AI aspect of it. So the Copilot, LLM, and vector search are now integrated together. And when you take the 7, what we call supply chain accelerators, that is wrapped around InterSystems Iris, that's where we come up with our supply chain decision intelligence platform. So each of these accelerators, and we can go into a lot of detail, but I'm not going to now, but there's automated issue detection, there's issue lifecycle management, there's supply chain APIs, there's a canonical data model that is supply chain specific, there's analytics cubes, there's a KPI framework that is built again to be more supply chain specific, and then there's a cloud-based services that are now brought into this. Just to give you an example, we had a luncheon this morning, well, at lunch, noon, around supply chain, and there's a question around track and trace. They wanted to be able to track anything like expired, like you saw in the video, expired products, product recalls, want to be able to track. And we have a service now that we can have track and trace that sits in the cloud to be able to track product along the life cycle of that particular product or the life cycle of the supply chain. So these 7 different, again, accelerators, we call it a supply chain framework, come together with InterSystems Iris to become the decision intelligence platform that we use. I think one of the things that we constantly are hearing from Gartner, I've tried to get Gartner to be able to say, can we use this? And their statement was, it takes 4 to 5 different products to do what you do with one product. And I think that's very, very key. Because think about the implementation time of 4 to 5 products versus one product. It's significant. We use, as you know, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, is that we're using a smart data fabric, as you know. So that's our underlying architecture, is using the smart data fabric, where we have pioneered the smart data fabric for over a decade. This allows us, with all the components within it, to be able to very quickly architect a very efficient solution going into those existing applications. The InterSystems Data Fabric Studio with Supply Chain Module, which is what I mentioned earlier that we launched, is the second supply chain product. This is a fully managed, low-code, self-service data gateway that can take those same data sources that we've been talking about on the left side. We bring it through what has already been intended to be non-developer implemented. So you can keep it within the business unit with a light tech touch to it. And a lot of it's been pre-packaged, that's supply chain specific. So as soon as that you download it, you can start using it almost immediately. We can connect, control, persist. Persist is extremely important when it comes to, especially in the planning environment and scheduling environment, and then use. So those 4 key components are leveraged in this low-code self-service way. And again, if we want to go into a little bit more detail, first of all, both Emily and Ming are going to go into the demo, and they're going to show you and go back to that use case that I talked about with Mr. Hernandez. So hopefully, if they were using Supply Chain Orchestrator and Data Fabric Studio, they never would have had the issue. So Mr. Hernandez would be a satisfied patient. So they're going to go into a lot more detail into each of these particular technologies, but after this meeting or sometime this week while you're still here, you want to talk about it in even more detail, especially if you want to go more technical, then both Emily and Ming can help with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer this over to Ming and Emily to take us through the demo. And then once it's done, I'll come back to a couple key takeaways and show how easy it is to transition from InterSystems Iris to Supply Chain Orchestrator.
Thank you, Mark. So Mark just gave me an assignment. He showed you a mid-surgery example. He gave me a couple tools, say, Ming, show people how you solve that problem with these tools. So Emily, ready? Let's get started, see if we can solve this problem. So as part of the analysis Mark mentioned earlier, one of the challenges people facing is all these silos, right? Siloed data, siloed applications, siloed functions. So let's take one at a time, Emily. For siloed data. Now, most people here, if you know InterSystems technology, that's the bread and butter of our company, right? We've been doing data critical solutions for decades. We have ensembles, we have Iris interoperability, and now we have the Data Fabric Studio. So Emily, can you explain what's the difference between the existing Iris data technology with interoperabilities and all the ensemble technology versus Data Fabric Studio?
Yeah, so Data Fabric Studio provides a low-code, no-code solution that you can see here. It's built on top of Iris and provides a lot of the interoperability features out of the box without any implementation really required. So we can configure data sources, we can create recipes, which are kind of the steps we want to take to transform our data and load it. And we can also schedule all of these tasks to run on a schedule that we want. And this is provided as a fully managed service, so there's a really low barrier to entry. Basically, you get it in an already working form.
I see. So basically, Data Fabric Studio is a supercharged version of Iris interoperability features, plus a lot more pre-built capabilities. Some of the stuff you are showing there. All right, so given that, and the challenge we are facing today is we need data from different data sources, from healthcare side, from supply chain side, right? So we have a lot of data to handle. And then you mentioned there's some tools in this here that help us to configure recipes and other things. Can you show us some more details, what it takes to do it?
Yeah, so before we get the data, we need to configure some data sources. So we have some connectors to external sources, including JDBC, so we can connect to things like Supply Chain Orchestrator and TrackCare. And we can also load other files. So if we have some healthcare data, we can also load that as files. Once we actually have that data loaded, we can then extract the schema and view it in our data catalog so we can see what some of our data actually looks like. We auto-extract the types from your file, which then makes it easier to load. And then once we have our data sources configured, we can then create a recipe, which are the steps we're going to take to load the data. So first, we need to stage the data. So that's just choosing which fields we actually want, which files we actually want. Once our data is staged, we can then apply a transformation. So we have a bunch of different options for how we can change any fields. So for example, we can apply code tables. So if we're bringing in data from different sources, we can then map it from one ID to another. So your healthcare side might have different codes than your supplier side. So we can map the code used from the medical side to what it's used in the supply chain side. We can also apply any custom SQL if these options aren't sufficient. And then basic features like lowercase, substring replacement, white spaces, and things like that. Once our transformation has been applied, we can then validate. So we want to make sure that our fields are correct. So an example would be, we want to make sure our zip code is actually valid, so we can use a regex to validate that. There are other options, including just making sure that it's not null, making sure that we actually have the data, and we also get to determine if this is fatal, so our recipe will stop, or if it is just a warning, and whoever is in charge of the recipe will get a notification. The next thing we can do is a reconciliation. So if we have data from multiple sources, we can verify that it actually matches what we expect. So if our primary keys match, we then want to make sure that other fields are within a certain range or exact matches. And then finally, we need to apply a promotion. So we can either store the data within our source, or we can send it to another source like Supply Chain Orchestrator, which is happening here. So we choose which columns we want, a target, and then finally we have mappings, which are mostly auto-mapped for us. And then once that's done, we can then schedule the task. So we can run it on a schedule or manually run it. So we have a lot of different options. So we can run it on a schedule. So if we wanted to run a report every day, every week, we could. Or we can manually run it. Or if it's dependent on another task, we can set it up to run after another one. So that's kind of how we can.
Well, you made it looks very easy. I know for those who have done these, there's a lot of tricky things, right? So we have to handle. But I do see the power of this tool. Looks like I don't need to know much about InterSystems Iris to do this. With some basic information, basic understanding of the data, I can get a lot of stuff done with this tool. And also, I really like the additional data catalog capability, right? So we're talking about, in this example, healthcare side of the data. supply chain side, I mean, supply chain has all kind of different systems, WMS, TMS, and so on. Same thing, healthcare side, EHRs and different data sources. So how to bring them together and you establish a data catalog so people can really focusing on the work at their hand, not worrying about the technical itty-bitty details, how to connect, how to retrieve information. So that's very powerful. And I can see a lot of use cases, right? Even beyond this example, using this tool. I don't see anything limit us to healthcare. I don't see limiting to any particular part of supply chain either. So if people start doing a lot of things, as you're showing in one of the screens earlier, right, your data catalog can be huge, right? We have 700 business entities in SAPs. We have thousands of database tables in TrackCare, right? How can somebody track all this large amount of data in the tool?
So we have a research assistant which can help give you some insight into the data catalog. So here's an example conversation from yesterday. So we can ask it what data sources we have from a specific source in the catalog. And then we can also get details about the schema of an individual file. Once we have that, we can get it from other sources as well. And then if we wanted, we can also have it do a mapping, which makes it really useful. So here we can see that it's able to see which fields actually match, even when their IDs are different. And this really gives some visibility. And our demo site is already up to, I think, 94 different sources. So it makes it a lot easier to get insights using the research assistant.
That's great. And for those of you who attended the Data Fabric Studio session earlier this afternoon, you heard on the roadmap, right? We want to generate the recipes for you using AI. Looks like we're taking baby steps towards that already here, right? Help you understand the data sources, give you suggestions about possible mappings, and the remaining, we're getting close, right? We're getting there. So great, so now we take care of the data. We have all the data from different data sources normalized, unified in one place. But we still haven't solved the problem, right? We haven't solved the system silos, the functional silos, and particularly how can we address that particular delayed surgery challenges. So now we have all the data in Supply Chain Orchestrator. So Emily, can you highlight some key capabilities of Supply Chain Orchestrator which can help us to get where we need to get?
Yeah, so Supply Chain Orchestrator provides some KPIs which can give you some insight into your data. In this example, we have a hospital network. So we have some warehouses and then some hospitals. And you can see that a network executive can see which procedures are at risk, what inventory is expiring, what shipments are late, and then can also drill down into an individual hospital to see some more information about what's actually going on there, and yeah, some information about that.
So it looks like you have a lot of analytics and other tools behind the scene. And once the data is in one place, you immediately get some visibility of your supply chain and healthcare. And I see a lot of different KPIs. Is that pre-built KPIs?
We have a mix of some built-in KPIs and then some that are fully configurable by the user. So if you have specific things that you're interested in, you can set them.
So our customers can configure their own business KPIs on top of the tool without getting into the development cycles and so on. Mm-hmm. So that's very nice. Given these capabilities, can you show us now a little bit more details, right? So we have this information, we bring in data, and analytics being applied, business logic being applied to capture different KPIs. Now, so what?
Yeah, so in our first view, we're kind of looking at this from a medical provider's point of view. So we can see that we have our procedure, and then we can also see what materials are required. And in this first case, we can see that we actually have a deficit. We don't have enough sponges. So if we go look into this, we can run analysis, which gives us an overview of kind of what's going on and what options there are. This is fully configurable by the user, so you can choose what process to run and how these are all determined. And it gives us some insight into that, as well as some competing procedures. So what else is being done that day that uses the same material. And we can also get an overview into what inventory is available at other locations. We can also view that same data from other perspectives. So if we wanted to look at the same data from an inventory perspective, we can see that. And we have different KPIs depending on which persona we have. And then we also can view from a supply chain perspective what supplies are coming in, where it's being shipped from, the carrier, and things like that.
Wow, that's great. So you have one data set together, right? And you can, using the same data set without ETL, you're doing your analytics on top of it, right? And then you can look at the same data set from different lenses. From healthcare provider perspective, how am I doing with my procedures? Any of them at risk? And what kind of risk if I do? And if you notice, some of the risks are not today's risk. They are future risks. We are looking into the future, right? By combining data that we have today, understanding what is your current inventory, what are the procedure schedule, what are the future inbound supplies, and what inventory I have. And then you bring all these things together to help people understand, in the next 10 days, what might be at risk. So I can take action sooner than later. And also you can look from other lenses. If you're managing, the logistic piece, right? So you may want to make sure everything gets on time. We all know supply chain, you have unpredictable disruptions, right? Nothing is guaranteed to be on time. And with this tool, it can also help you understand if you do have something missed a delivery date, if you do have a delay, what is the impact? Not just on inventory, on the shipment stance. What is the impact on my end customer, my patient? What patient care is going to be impacted due to that particular logistic issue? So this is how we bring all these things together. So then healthcare provider can work hand in hand with supply chain groups to really make sure we put the right priority in front of us, so we can avoid that kind of delays. So Emily, I noticed, we talk about these future risks, right? So it's good to know what might be at risk. So what kind of trick do we pull in to do that kind of analysis?
Yeah, so we can really use some interoperability features to take advantage of it. We also can use some machine learning. We can see how people have responded in the past to then determine how they're going to respond in the future. And we can also get some more insights into why a specific option was chosen using Gen AI. I'll include my question so you can ask it why option B is the recommended option. And it will give us some more information into why this option was chosen, which can then help make a more informed decision. We can also use the chatbot to compare what's happening at different locations. Yeah, so we can see that it's telling us that it has a minimal cost and that it is sourcing from another location, and will show the impact of that on the other hospital, but determine that it's the most feasible option.
Great. So you can set the guidelines, right? How you want to address it. What do you put first, right? In some cases, people may want to help the bottom line, say, I want to get the cheapest solution. In some cases, you say, my patient goes first, right? Regardless of the cost, or some combination of different things. So with this tool, you can set your criteria through configuration, your business rules, your business processes. And then the system will take that into consideration and then bring all the relevant data together, apply the analytics and all the kind of optimization process to give you the solutions like this, with different options and help you understand what's behind each option. What is the logic? What is the data, right? So this is really coming to some of the AI things. When we talk about AI this morning, everybody excited about the agentic AI stuff, right? So I have some comments after this one, but I want to ask Emily to do one more thing. So once we understand the options, I know which option I'm going to take. Is that all we can do?
So once we choose the option, we can then configure the system to actually follow through with that option. So whether it's choosing to take the inventory, we can get that order sent and things like that. We also can learn based on those choices and train it to eventually automatically make that decision. If like 100% of the time we're doing something, we can have that be an automated process.
So it looks like this is just a part of the journey of the AI, right? So we started with something, you may build step by step from machine learning to the forecasting, predictions, and then with combining with other business criteria, doing the optimization, and then eventually you get to what's the best solution, right, for that particular problem. And you can execute it, and system can help you to automate a lot of steps. And what Emily is saying is, over time, as we see more and more these kind of examples, we don't have to come to this screen each instance, right? We have enough confidence, we can automate the whole process. And as your business grow, this morning we are having some conversations, right? As you extend your use cases, your criteria may change, right? You can change the business rules, and you can adopt to different logic, to different scenarios, and so on. So you can see a lot of things need to come together, and then we can keep improving the AI solution over time, right? So we can automate some part, we can adopt and adjust to different dynamics of your supply chain or your business criteria, and then keep your solution growing with your business. So this is very interesting. And I talk about the morning session today. Everybody excited about agentic AI. So it's a very interesting perspective. Doctor, I forgot his name now. I'm sorry, the UK professor talk about that, right? Agentic AI. So I see that's a very interesting perspective. So let me look up what exactly is the definition of agentic AI. Anybody knows that definition? So I opened the AI, ChatGPT, to answer what is agentic AI. So it gave me a definition, which I'm not going to read a long definition, but here's the interesting part. It says, these systems go beyond just responding to input. They initiate actions, make decisions, and sometimes plan over time to achieve objective, often with limited human oversight. So that reminds me of something very similar we just showed here, right? We give you recommendations, initiate actions with minimum oversight, and look over time horizon. So man, I was like, maybe we should marketing this differently, Mark, right? So this is a platform for agentic AI in supply chain, isn't it? But we're not quite there yet, but that's the direction we're going with this, isn't it? Right? So I really like the talk this morning. I think one way is validate what we're trying to do with our supply chain product and the direction we're trying to achieve to help our customers. So I think hopefully you get the idea, a taste, how combining the tools that we have today in the market, right? There's two products Mark mentioned, and the step-by-step, right? You help address the data silos, application silos. I know we didn't dive into the application silos because as Emily is showing the analysis, that analysis can bring in, you can use data not just in supply chain orchestrator, can bring in other applications as part of the business process to give you those recommendations. Example is if you need contingency labor, right? The business process can reach out to a labor management solution, grab that as an input, and using that as part of the decision making, right? So that's, addressing the application silos. And also for the functional silos Emily showed you, right? So you can look from different lenses on the same data set without having to move things around. And then you can jointly achieve the optimal business outcome. Not just looking through one lens, you look at from different lenses. So really you look at the whole systematic way to address the problem. So we are showing you some of these baby steps and some examples how we can help you. But in case you have other use cases, feel free to reach out to us, and we can talk about how our supply chain product can help your use cases. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mark.
Thank you, Ming and Emily. So just a couple key takeaways that we think is important based on what we just showed you is that our modern supply chain technology, it proactively manages disruptions. It's with advanced analytics and Gen AI, which you saw, which is a co-pilot, and that's where we were talking about agentic AI, to provide prescriptive insights and real-time optimized decision-making. We showed you that. To optimize your business challenges. And again, it could be within healthcare or any other type of vertical or sector that you work within. And I think important too is transitioning from InterSystems Iris to Supply Chain Orchestrator is simple. And just a couple bullet points on this is that oftentimes we get questions, how can we go from Iris to SCO, Supply Chain Orchestrator? So because it's not, they want the functionality that we just showed you, the prescriptive insights, decision intelligence, and the ability to manage to the level that would be expected in your businesses. The key takeaway is that it's built on Iris. So it's built on technology that you're already used to. And Supply Chain Orchestrator is an add-on to Iris. And it allows you to expand your application capability of once you're on Supply Chain Orchestrator. So it literally, we just went through, well, 2 transitions recently, both in France, and it was not, it was literally, I mean, is anything, you know, extremely simple? I would say this was simple. And so I really would like you to, if you find that there's interest in what you would like to do to be able to go from InterSystems Iris to SEO, just let us know. So we have resources that a lot of you have already gone to the Tech Exchange already. We had that right before. There's a lot of resources that you can reach out to understand more of what we just said. Obviously, Ming, myself, Emily, and others that are in this room could be very helpful to you. So please reach out. Give us feedback on how we did, and like to open it up for any Q&A. Thank you. All right, do we have any questions? Yes, thank you.
My question is, when the data is not external, but it is sitting on the same platform, assuming we port an application on the SEO, so everything is there. What is the way to connect it in order to start running the business rules and everything?
The gentleman right next to you can answer that question.
Thank you. That's a good question. So the supply chain orchestrator you can think of is just a special version of Iris, right, with specific supply chain capabilities and X-rays on top of it. So if your data is already in Iris, supply chain orchestrator can access the data. And if you have built your application on Iris already, and you don't have to throw it away. And you can have supply chain orchestrator to sit on top of that, so you can continue to use your existing application and gradually bring in additional capabilities that you want to build with supply chain orchestrator. It's in all-in-one, data platform, so we can access that easily. You can have your productions, if you have the right security setup, for example, they should be able to access the right data as needed. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.